Chapter 1. The first time I tried to speak when I was a child, English was like a wall, a big, tall wall. I stood on one side and English stood on the other. I wanted to climb it. I wanted to speak, but I was afraid. My heart beat fast when someone said something in English. I could not understand. I could not reply. I just stayed quiet. I smiled. I nodded. But inside I felt small. I felt like I was not good enough. At school, some students spoke English well. They sounded smart, confident. I looked at them and thought, will I ever speak like that? Every time a teacher asked a question in English, I looked down. I prayed they would not pick me. I did not want to make a mistake. I did not want others to laugh. My fear was bigger than my words. But one day, something changed. It was a small thing. I found a storybook in English, a book for kids, with pictures. I opened it. I did not understand every word, but I understood some. The cat was sleeping. The dog was running. I looked at the pictures. I read the words slowly. I said them out loud. My voice was soft. My words were slow. But I liked how it sounded. I read the story again the next day, and the next. That was the beginning. Not speaking, but listening. Every day I listened to English. I listened to stories, songs, cartoons. I did not understand everything, but I kept listening. And something interesting happened. My ears started to change. They got used to the sound of English. I started to hear words again and again. Good morning. Thank you. Come here. I started to know what they meant, not by thinking in my language, but by feeling them. English was no longer a wall. It was becoming a door. At night, I listened to songs. I didn't know all the lyrics, but I felt the rhythm, the emotion. I sang along. I copied the sounds. It was fun. I was not scared. There was no teacher, no test, just music. I realized something. Listening was helping me more than I knew. It was teaching my ears to catch the music of English, the ups and downs, the speed, the pauses. It was like learning to dance before learning the steps. Soon I started to speak short lines. I copied cartoons. I said, "Hello. What's your name? Let's go." I looked in the mirror. I made funny faces. I made silly voices. But it helped. I was getting used to my English voice. That was important. Most people don't hear their own English enough. And because they don't hear it, they don't trust it. They think it sounds wrong. But it doesn't. It just sounds new. I remember one moment clearly. I was in a shop. A tourist asked me, "Where's the train station?" I froze. My hands got cold. I wanted to run. But I remembered a phrase I had heard on TV. I said, "Go straight." Then left. The tourist smiled. "Thank you," he said. I smiled too. I felt proud. My heart was still beating fast. But this time it was from happiness. After that, I started to practice more. I talked to myself while walking. I named the things I saw. This is a tree. That is a car. I talked about my day in English. I woke up. I brushed my teeth. I went to school. They were small sentences, but they were my own. They came from me, not from a book, not from a teacher, from me. My family laughed sometimes. "Why are you talking to yourself?" they asked. I just smiled. I knew why. I was training my mouth, training my voice, just like I had trained my ears. I was building a bridge between what I heard and what I could say. Looking back, I see the truth. Speaking English didn't start with grammar. It didn't start with big words or long sentences. It started with listening, listening again and again, then copying, then speaking small lines, slowly, gently, like learning to walk. If you are afraid to speak English, I understand you. I was like you. But here's what I learned. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to begin. Listen. Repeat. Use small sentences. Say them out loud, even if you are alone, even if you feel silly. That's how it starts. That's how fear becomes confidence. A little story, a little voice, a little courage. These are small things. But they made a big difference for me, and they can for you too. Chapter 2. Learning to speak through mistakes. I used to think I had to be perfect to speak English. I thought, if I don't say it right, people will laugh. So I stayed quiet. For a long time, I waited for the right moment, the moment when I would know enough, sound smart enough, and never make a mistake. That moment never came. Because perfection is not the beginning of learning. It is the biggest enemy of progress. It stops us before we even start. But then, something changed in me. I decided to try anyway. Not because I felt ready, but because I was tired of being silent. My early practice was simple, but messy. I spoke to myself in the mirror. Good morning, how are you? Today is sunny. I am brushing my teeth. Sometimes I got the tenses wrong. Sometimes I forgot words. Sometimes I made weird sounds, but I kept going. Every day I spoke, even if only for 5 minutes. I didn't wait for a teacher. I didn't wait for a class. I just spoke. In the kitchen, in the shower, while walking to school. I made English part of my daily routine. And that changed everything. One day I tried to speak to someone online. It was a language exchange. I was nervous. My heart was racing. I typed, "Hi, my name is," and then turned on the mic. The other person smiled and said, "Nice to meet you." I froze. My mind went blank. I stammered, I no understand." We both laughed. It was awkward, embarrassing, but the world didn't end. And that was the lesson. Mistakes didn't kill me, they taught me. Here are some of the mistakes I made in the beginning. I said, "I am go to market," instead of "I am going to the market." I said, "He have a car," instead of "He has a car." I once said, "I eat breakfast tomorrow," when I meant, "I will eat breakfast tomorrow." Yes, people corrected me. Yes, I felt a little shy. But you know what? I remembered those moments. Those mistakes stuck in my mind more than any grammar rule. Because I had felt them. Mistakes became my teachers. And here's the truth. Fluency is not about speaking without mistakes. It's about speaking through mistakes. It's about trying again and again and again. That's what I did. Every day, I picked a topic and spoke about it for 5 minutes. One day, my favorite food. Next day, my school routine. Next day, a memory from childhood. I didn't need perfect words. I needed practice. And practice gave me something better than perfection. It gave me confidence. Repetition was my secret weapon. The more I said something, the easier it became. My name is became natural. I live in became automatic. I like to came without thinking. At first, I had to push the words out. Later, they came on their own. Like riding a bicycle, at first I wobbled. But with repetition, I found my balance. Let me tell you a little story. One day, I met a tourist in my city. He asked, "Can you tell me where the bus stop is?" I answered, "Yes. You go this way, then right." It wasn't perfect, but it worked. He understood. And in that small success, I felt something powerful. Not pride in perfect grammar, but joy in being understood. That's what matters. So if you're afraid of making mistakes, hear this. Make them. Make them loudly. Make them proudly. Every mistake you make is a step forward, a sign that you are trying, a proof that you are learning. Don't wait to be perfect. Speak today. Speak badly. Speak bravely. But speak, because the only real mistake is silence. Chapter 3. Finding my voice with real people. I remember the day clearly. I had just downloaded a language exchange app. My hands were shaking. My heart was loud. A native English speaker had agreed to speak with me. His name was Ben. He was from Canada. He sent a voice message. "Hey, nice to meet you." I froze. I replayed it 5 times. I tried to reply. My voice cracked. I didn't know if my words made sense. But I hit send. That moment changed everything for me. Until then, English was something I read in books. It was a subject in school, a thing on paper. But speaking to a real person? That was new. That was scary. I felt small. I felt like my English wasn't enough. But I also felt something else. I felt alive. Because for the first time, my English had a listener. A real one. Not a teacher, not a test, just a person. And I wanted to be understood. At first, I used simple sentences. I am from Pakistan. I like movies. My English is not good. Ben smiled. He said, "It's okay. Let's just talk." That helped. We kept talking, slowly, carefully. He corrected me sometimes, but always kindly. I said, "He go to school," and he replied, "Oh, he goes to school. Just a small as." I laughed. I said it again. "He goes to school." And I never forgot that rule again. It wasn't grammar, it was real. It was in my mouth, not in my notebook. That's what real conversation does. It makes the language come alive. You hear emotions, you hear rhythm, you hear how people feel when they speak. Books can't teach that. Lessons can't give that. Only real people can. Talking to Ben, I learned the power of tone. When he said "really," with surprise, I felt it. When he said "I'm sorry," with a soft voice, I understood the feeling. And slowly, I started to speak like that too. After that first talk, I wanted more. I found more friends online. I joined video calls. I joined small groups that practiced English together. Some people were better than me. Some were still learning. We helped each other. We asked questions. We laughed at our mistakes. We shared our cultures. And most of all, we practiced. Every single day. I remember one girl from Brazil. Her name was Layla. She said, "I feel shy to speak." I said, "Me too." So we made a rule. We would talk for 5 minutes every morning. Just 5 minutes, about anything, food, school, weather. But we spoke. That small habit changed our English. We became faster, stronger, more natural. Our English started to feel like part of us, not just something we were learning. And then, something amazing happened. One day I was in a group call. Someone said, "Can you explain what that movie is about?" I started talking. Without thinking, I just spoke. My hands moved. My voice was clear. I didn't stop to find words. I didn't pause to translate. I was just speaking. And when I finished, they clapped. "That was great," someone said. I smiled. I couldn't believe it. English had finally clicked. That click is not magic. It's practice. It's people. It's conversations. The more I spoke, the more I learned what no book could teach. How real people talk. How they laugh. How they pause. How they say, "uh-huh," or "you know," or "sort of." These things are not in textbooks. They live in real voices. And those voices helped me find my own. Some days were still hard. Sometimes I forgot words. Sometimes I misunderstood. One time I thought sick meant cool, and I said, "My grandmother is very sick," with a happy tone. Everyone laughed, then explained. I laughed too. That's how we learn. Every real talk made me better. Every small chat made me stronger. I started to enjoy speaking. I stopped worrying about being right. I started focusing on being real. Now, when I speak English, I don't just speak from memory. I speak from experience, from real moments with real people. That's how I found my voice. So, if you want to learn, find someone to talk to. Don't wait to be perfect. Find a friend, join a group, use an app. Just speak, make mistakes, laugh, try again, because your voice is waiting. And English is not something you learn alone. It's something you share. Chapter 4: How Stories Helped Me Speak. It started with a bedtime story. Not in English, but in my language. I remember being a child listening to my grandmother. Her voice was soft, her eyes kind, and her stories full of wonder. I didn't know it back then, but those early moments were teaching me something powerful. Language lives in stories. Years later, when I was trying to learn English, I didn't start with grammar books. I started with simple English stories. I found a YouTube channel with short cartoon stories for kids. At first, I didn't understand everything, but I kept watching. Every day, same time, like a ritual. I chose one story and listened again and again. The words started to stick. The phrases repeated in my mind like music. One of the first stories I understood was about a lost dog. The boy said, "Where is my dog?" again and again. That one sentence became part of me. Where is... It opened so many doors. Where is my bag? Where is the book? Where is she? That's the magic of stories. You don't just learn words, you learn how they live together. I started reading simple storybooks too, short ones with pictures. I loved how one page taught me 10 new things. She ran fast. He was scared. They laughed together. These short lines stayed in my heart. They were easy to remember because they felt real. They were not dry grammar rules like subject-verb agreement or past continuous tense, number. They were living sentences, connected to feelings. Stories are better than grammar books because they make you feel something. When you feel, you remember. And when you remember, you speak. Slowly, I made it a habit. 10 minutes every day. One story. Sometimes I listened. Sometimes I read. Sometimes I wrote down what I heard. I even tried to repeat the sentences with the same emotion. I copied the voices, the rhythm, the energy. I was training my tongue and ears without even realizing it. I wasn't memorizing rules. I was living the language. And then I started something new. I began creating my own stories. At first they were silly, just 5 or 6 lines, like, one day I met a cat. The cat was hungry. I gave him fish. He smiled. I smiled too. Simple, right? But powerful, because I was using my own words. I didn't care if they were perfect. I just wanted to express something. I wanted to tell something. And that changed everything. Every night I wrote a small story in English, sometimes real, sometimes made up. I used the words I learned that day. I didn't worry about making mistakes. I just focused on making meaning. That habit of writing and telling my own stories gave me confidence. Slowly, I started sharing those stories in English-speaking groups. People listened. Some even laughed or smiled. They asked questions, and I answered. That's when I realized something. When you tell a story, people listen to your message, not your grammar. They want to feel something, not correct your sentence. This gave me courage. Even when I forgot a word, I found another way to say it. That's what fluency means, not knowing every word, but being able to keep going. From listening to storytelling, my English changed. I was no longer just a learner. I became a speaker, a storyteller. I could connect. I could explain. I could make someone laugh or feel something using only my voice and my words. And you can do this too. Start simple, choose a story, listen to it, repeat it. Then write your own. Make it short, make it fun. Don't wait to become perfect. Just start. One story a day can change the way you speak, because when you speak from a story, you speak from the heart. And that is the most powerful English of all. Chapter 5. Speaking Alone. Before speaking to others. Before I could speak to people, I had to speak to myself. It sounds strange, I know, but it was the most important step in my English journey. I was scared to speak in front of others, scared of judgment, scared of saying the wrong word, scared of freezing in the middle of a sentence. So, I found a quiet way to begin. I started speaking alone. It began in the mirror. Every morning, after brushing my teeth, I would look at myself and say something, anything, in English. Good morning. How are you? I would smile at myself and answer, I'm fine, thank you. It was funny at first, but it became a habit, a safe space. No one laughed. No one corrected me. I was my own listener. Then I started speaking during small tasks. While making tea, I would say, I am boiling water. While walking to the shop, I would say, I need to buy eggs and bread. When I couldn't find the right word, I paused, thought, tried again. And that's how I built fluency, by living in English for a few minutes every day. One of the biggest changes happened when I began recording my voice. I used my phone. No fancy equipment, just me and my words. At first it was hard to listen to myself. I hated the sound of my voice. I thought, do I really sound like that? But I kept going. I recorded short sentences. Today is sunny. I feel tired. I watched a good movie. Simple things. After a week, I listened to my first recording again, and I smiled. I had improved. My words were clearer. My pauses were shorter. That was the moment I realized practice was working. Speaking alone wasn't just practice, it was transformation. I also trained my mind to think in English, just one sentence at a time. I didn't try to translate every thought. I chose simple ones. I am hungry. That dress is pretty. I have work tomorrow. Every time I caught myself thinking in my language, I paused and asked, how would I say this in English? It wasn't easy, but slowly English became part of my inner voice. Over time, I noticed something amazing. Speaking in front of others didn't feel as scary anymore. I had practiced the words. I had heard my own voice say them. I had already said these sentences 100 times while walking, cooking, or staring into the mirror. When someone asked me, "How was your day?" I didn't freeze. I had said that answer before, to myself. I had rehearsed it. When a stranger said hello online, I didn't panic. I had already practiced introductions alone. That's the secret no one talks about. Public confidence starts in private. Fluency is built in silence, in quiet rooms, on empty streets, in whispered words that no one hears except you. Speaking alone gave me the space to grow without fear. And little by little, those quiet sentences turned into real conversations. If you're afraid to speak in front of others, start with yourself. Speak in the mirror. Speak while walking. Speak to your phone. Don't wait for a perfect listener. Be your first audience. Because once you learn to speak to yourself with courage, you'll be ready to speak to the world. Chapter 6. The Power of Questions in Conversation. When I first started learning English, I thought speaking meant giving the perfect answer. I believed fluency was about knowing everything and saying it quickly. But I was wrong. One day, I discovered something powerful. The secret to good conversation isn't always in the answers. It's in the questions. Asking questions changed everything for me. It began with a small experiment. I was shy and unsure of myself, especially in real conversations. I didn't know what to say after hello or how to keep the talk going. So I tried something simple. Instead of worrying about what to say, I just asked a question. Where are you from? That one question opened the door. The other person smiled and answered. Then I asked, "What do you do?" Again, they replied, and we kept talking. I didn't have to speak a lot. I just had to stay curious. I started practicing small talk every day. At the grocery store, "Is this line open?" On the bus, "What time does it stop at the station?" Online, "What's your favorite movie?" These were not big questions, but they kept the conversation alive. I didn't need to speak like a native. I just needed to keep the rhythm going. Of course, I made mistakes. Once, while traveling, I tried to ask a stranger, "Which way is the museum?" But I got the words mixed up and said, "How to find my museum." The man looked confused. I laughed, corrected myself, and said it again, this time slowly. "Sorry, where is the museum?" He smiled and pointed. We both laughed. That moment taught me something big. It's okay to mess up, as long as you keep going. Most people are kind. Most people will help you if they see you trying. Curiosity made me a better speaker. I stopped thinking about myself, how I looked, how I sounded, and started focusing on the other person. What are they saying? What can I ask next? What do they love to talk about? Suddenly, conversations were not scary anymore. They were fun, like little adventures. I also began preparing questions in advance. I would write down 10 simple questions in my notebook and try to use 1 or 2 every day. Things like, "What do you like to eat for breakfast?" "How long have you lived here?" "What's your favorite song?" Some people gave long answers. Some gave short ones. But every answer was a new chance to speak more. Then, one day, something amazing happened. I was in an online language group. A new member joined and seemed nervous. I remembered how that felt. So I smiled and said, "Hi. Where are you from?" Then we started talking. I asked about their job, their hobbies, their favorite food. They answered and then asked me questions too. After about 15 minutes, someone in the group said, "Wow, you led the whole conversation." I hadn't even noticed. That's when it hit me. I had become a fluent speaker without realizing it. Not because I spoke perfectly, but because I stayed curious, because I kept the conversation alive, because I asked questions. So if you're learning to speak, don't wait to know everything. Just ask. Ask small things. Ask silly things. Ask with confidence, even if your grammar isn't perfect. Questions are the bridge between silence and connection. Remember, a good question is more powerful than a perfect sentence. So go out today and ask someone something in English. That one question might be the start of your next big conversation. Chapter 7. Keeping English Alive in Daily Life. Learning English is not something you do once a week. It's not something that happens only in a classroom or during a short study session. Real progress came when I made English part of my daily life, not something separate, but something I lived with all the time. I still remember the first change I made. It was simple. I changed the language on my phone to English. At first it was confusing. I didn't know what settings or notifications meant. But every day I saw those words, again and again. And slowly, they became normal. My fingers started remembering where to tap. My eyes got used to the new words. That's when I realized repetition makes the strange become familiar. Next, I started reading signs on streets, at stores, on buses. I would say the words out loud: exit, push, open daily, no smoking. These were small, everyday words, but they added up. And because I saw them in real life, they stayed in my mind longer than words from a textbook. I also began labeling things around the house. I wrote mirror on a sticky note and placed it on the mirror. I wrote door, fridge, remote, window, everything. Every time I looked at these objects, the English word was there, waiting for me. It made learning feel fun, almost like a game. One of the most powerful habits I built was watching English videos, but with a purpose. At first, I watched for fun, funny clips, songs, movie scenes. But later, I chose videos where people spoke clearly. I paused after each sentence and repeated it out loud. I mimicked their rhythm, their tone, even their expressions. It felt like I was talking to them. This shadowing method became one of my favorite learning tools. Then I began something I never thought I could do: writing a daily journal in English. It was simple, just 5 sentences a day. Today I woke up late. I drank tea and watched the rain. I felt a little tired. I read a chapter from my book. I want to sleep early tonight. Writing helped me see what I knew and what I needed to learn. I used new words I had heard in videos or seen on signs, and the more I wrote, the easier it became. But maybe the most important practice of all was this: I talked to myself. Yes, out loud. If I saw a tree, I said, "The tree is tall." If I felt sad, I said, "I am feeling down today." If I was cooking, I said, "I'm making rice and vegetables." These little moments were powerful. Speaking about my world, what I saw, what I felt, what I did, turned my private thoughts into English sentences. I didn't wait for a partner. I made myself the partner. Slowly, without even noticing, English became part of my world. It was no longer something I studied. It was something I lived with. From the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep. And that's the secret. If you want to speak English fluently, you can't keep it locked in a book or a single hour of practice. You have to let it live with you. Look around you. Everything you see has a name in English. Everything you do can be described in English. Speak it. Write it. Think it. Don't wait for a perfect moment to practice. Make every moment a practice. That's how I kept English alive. And that's how it came alive in me. Chapter 8. Talk more, fear less. There was a time when I used to count my words before speaking. I worried about grammar. I worried about sounding strange. I worried someone might laugh. So, I stayed quiet. But one day, something changed. It wasn't a big moment. No fireworks, no dramatic music. Just a simple conversation with a stranger at a bus stop. He asked, "Do you know what time the next bus comes?" And without thinking, I said, I think in 10 minutes. That was it. No panic, no overthinking. I had answered like it was normal. Later, I smiled to myself. That was the turning point. That's when I realized speaking was starting to feel natural. It didn't happen overnight. It came from months of small efforts. Every journal entry, every video, every question I asked in English. All those tiny moments added up. I started to celebrate these small wins, saying hello to a tourist, ordering food in English, understanding a full YouTube video without subtitles. These weren't small to me, they were victories, and they gave me motivation to keep going. Confidence is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. I began talking to people without fear, even strangers. I knew I might make mistakes, but I also knew I would survive them. Sometimes I said the wrong word. Sometimes I forgot what I wanted to say. But people were kind. They listened. Some even helped me with the right words. That's when I learned an important lesson. The goal is not perfection. The goal is connection. With this new mindset, I took more chances. I joined online group discussions. I helped a lost traveler find directions. I talked with people in English even when I felt nervous. And every time, the fear got smaller. Soon, English wasn't just something I was learning. It was something that was changing my life. I could read more, learn more, express myself better. I could connect with people from other cultures. I could share my story and hear theirs. English gave me access to the world. It also gave me a new kind of freedom. The freedom to speak, to be heard, and to belong. Now, when someone asks me how I became fluent, I say this: I didn't wait to be perfect. I just started talking. That's what I want to say to you. Don't wait for the fear to go away before you speak. The fear goes away because you speak. Even one sentence a day is progress. Even saying, "Hello, how are you?" is a win. You don't need a big stage. You just need a voice, and you already have one. So here's your challenge. Talk more. Fear less. Start today. Talk to the mirror. Talk to a friend. Talk to a stranger. Talk in your room, on the street, or online. Just talk. Because every time you do, you get closer to the speaker you want to become. It's your turn now. Don't wait. Speak today.